we have a natural system of adrenaline, fight or flight, which gets us out of difficult situations. But if those situations are overwhelm our system, then the system goes into trauma, which is a shutdown system. And there's two forms of it. One is hyperarousal, which is freeze, dissociation, going numb, freezing, out of body. The other one is hyperarousal, which is kind of like panic. So those are the two things you can do, and they're the two ways which go. And so this is something which you might have seen in training sessions, and you might see on the street. People going into one of those two. And if that happens, what is really important for yourself as a trainer or is how you are. Lizzie, could you time keep for me and tell me when we got 10 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thanks. It's really important when that happens how we are, because they'll be really picking up on that. When I first met, in my training, met people with trauma, I got all worried. I actually went into freeze myself, and that's very easy. If you do that, you pick up on them, you go into the same thing yourself, you're not helping. So what's really important is to just be really matter of fact and say, like, Craig, if you've got this, okay, Craig, that's okay, you're just having a trauma reaction and it's perfectly normal in this situation. Now what you need to do is, so it's kind of like that, really matter of fact voice, something you've seen before, and that goes into the trauma reaction and the person could kind of react to it. And if the person is in hypoarousal, that's the frozen state, what you need to do is to try to get them to, okay, so can you move your legs, can you move your arm? Making just very gradual movements. And then getting them to make the gradual movement. Another thing which you can do as soon as they're able to is kind of tap their body, but kind of tap life back into it. And then if the point where they move, just go and walk with them out of the situation. So that's trying to get them out of the situation, where the place where they feel safer. And then at that point, what you do, and a lot of this is going to be in the handout which you'll get, is you get them to notice ordinary things. So look around you. Can you name 5 things? A lamppost, curtains, a desk, a tree. And then you ask them, can you hear 4 things? Get them to listen to different sounds. Then, can you touch? Get them to touch different things and name it. And the last thing is, can you smell? Smells. And what you're doing is you're getting the senses back working again. And you're doing it in that matter-of-fact voice. And the other thing is just constantly saying, and you're safe, and you're safe, and I'm with you. So that's hypoarousal. Hyperarousal is a kind of total panic. And there, the first thing is to tell them to breathe, and you mimic it. Breathe really slowly. Breathing out, count to 8. Breathing in, count to 7. Breathing out, count to 9. And you're counting them with that. So it's really getting them to slow their breathing. That slows the system down. So that's the important thing. Then walk them out of the situation and getting them walking, moving. Just ordinary walking. And then the third thing is the noticing, maybe when they're out there, the same thing. Name 5 things. So it's really what you're doing is that when you're in these panic reactions or hypoarousal, what happens within the brain is that the thinking part gets cut off. And so by saying and naming, it's getting that part re-engaged, which helps. It's getting that part re-engaged. It's getting the breathing re-engaged. That slows down the heart rate, slows down, and gets the system working again. Another thing for, particularly if they're that thing, is you get them to do a butterfly hug, which is holding your hands like this and just tapping themselves, just slowly, not too fast, because too fast you're stimulating. It's slowly, and that's something which I'll come to in the how to work with, prepare people. That's something which people can do after a traumatic incident. They think back to the traumatic incident a week later if they're still getting flashbacks, and they just do that as they're thinking about it. And that's an EMDR technique. And then the last one, which will be with the hyper-arousal, is if you've prepared them beforehand, and this would be in the next bit which I'm coming to, is you get people to imagine a safe place, your favourite place. So, it might be a beach somewhere. It might be a pool by a forest. It might be, for me, a tour at the top of Dartmoor. So each person has, and this is what you do in your training, you get each person to think of their safe place, of a safe place, and you take them through into that by getting them to describe what's around, what they can see, what they can hear, what they can smell, what the temperature's like, and get them to really be in that place. And what's lovely is people start yawning. And if people in a trauma situation start yawning, it's really good because the parasympathetic is being re-engaged. So you prepare them with that, and I've got everyone yawning. It's amazing. And you prepare them with that, and then when they're in a trauma situation, they can remember their safe place. And there's good neuro evidence that if you imagine something, it's exactly the same as if you're there. So that's a really good thing for you to pre-teach the activists, because maybe they're going to be in jail. Maybe they're going to be in the police station. Maybe they can't go out of the situation to be safe, which you talked about. Then it's to imagine that.
Can I just add to that? That thing about imagining being the same as living the thing. It's also the same with body movements. So I don't know if this is true, but I can imagine sometimes when I do mindfulness and yoga with people, we say, well, if you can't, if through injury or whatever, you can't do the movements, you can imagine, say, stretching your arm, whatever. And it's to do with the mirror neurons in the brain. But I was thinking you could probably imagine butterfly tapping as well. So if you're handcuffed to something and you're feeling really wound up, then if you've practiced it, that's another thing you could practice before, is just imagining butterfly tapping yourself, as well as really having cultivated that sense of a safe place that you've already chosen. Or it might be conjuring the smell of something that comforts you. So for some it might be lavender oil, for others it might be coffee, it could be all sorts of things, doesn't matter what it is. It's that thing that for you is comforting. And you could even go prepared to actions with the oil, aromatherapy oil, and a bit of cotton wool or something. So yeah, Anna.
Can I just quickly say, for neurodiverse people like me, we find imagining hard. So pictures, we need pictures. That's why support from the outside is so important when you're in prison, because they send pictures and we use that to imagine. That's how we imagine, some of us.
Very good to know.
Yeah.
Very, very good to know. And so you're knowing how to prepare it. And if people, your activists have that, to give them a picture. Okay.
And the whole thing is knowing all these things, it just gives everyone the opportunity to find out what it is that works for you, because I'm not very good at visually imagining anything either. So the other sensory things would work better for me, so knowing for you, just spending a bit of time and helping each other to figure that out. And when buddying up with people or other people in your other bees, you can help each other in that way.
Yeah.
Reminding each other. Yeah.
And my suggestion is that as you're the trainers, when you train a group of activists, you get them to work in pairs and to develop something which makes them safe, which could be imagining a safe place and helping them through it, could be a stone, could be, their feet on the ground, and they each helping the other person to develop something which they can use. If it's okay, I screen share with you now. This is the leaflet which I'm suggesting you give out and you go through. And what I've got in the other thing, which I think Dave's put to the chat, is this reformatted in A5. So you can have what I have here. I just printed out 200 leaflets of this. So that's, it's quite easy. It's reformatted in the way Dave has. So it comes out as an A5 card, which is easy for people to take with them. Because remember, when people are traumatized, the first thing that's going to go is the memory. So having a piece of paper which they can refer to, and which the other people around can refer to. It's like people have a bust card in XR. People just have that with it, it'll help them to remember it. And it starts off, and I think this is good for you to go through it, of just explaining to people that trauma is perfectly normal, and explaining what some of the responses are. So I put it after it, but these are things which you also might be experiencing at the time. So sense of shock, spaced out numbness, cut off from feelings, that's the hypo. Physiological fear response of heart beating fast, difficult breathing, stomach tightening, not racing thoughts. And then afterwards, there's things which can happen for the next week, coming out of prison, coming out of an action, you're wanting to eat too much salt, sweet food, anxious, hypervigilant, mood swings, sleep, nightmares, flashbacks. And so it's just saying that this is what might happen. If it happens, don't worry, it's normal. And then it's some helpful guidelines for self-care after a traumatic incident. So this is just tips which people could do. And this is more afterwards, but it's helpful at the time as well. Stay grounded. So, if you're sitting, being brought up, with a bunch of cops around you, or with a, angry pedestrian, feel your feet, feel your weight on the ground, maybe tap yourself. So that's one thing, going out into nature. Another thing is stay connected. So what happens after it is, after an action, it's kind of, people can go into isolation. So it's keeping in contact with people who you normally feel safe. That's really important. These are just kind of really helpful people when people have gone through it. You might be connecting with the other people who you went the action with. It's sort of so that you can debrief each other, but not get stuck into repeating the story. And then find activities that are calming and restoring, which is being in familiar surroundings, re-establishing a normal routine. That's really important. Eating, getting up, going for a walk. So that's just a variety of things. And then if symptoms are strong, contact your will. So that's just a very basic thing. I thought there was more. No, that's just a very basic thing for people. First aid. And then the other thing which you should teach them, so it's going through that, saying this is the simple things, and then teaching them about the safe place, getting them to get that going for them, and secondly, the butterfly tap. And what you do with the butterfly tap is, if after it they're having flashbacks, they go through that time, like, okay, so, I was sitting in the road, the car came, the cops came, it was all really difficult. And noticing the feelings in your body. And what you could do is say how strong these feelings are. Poof, this is 8 out of 10, if 10 is totally unbearable. You then repeat going through it, just tapping, going through it and tapping at the same time. I find walking as well. The tapping and the walking, it gives a bilateral stimulation which helps processing. It kind of kickstarts. If there's a trauma, it's because a memory was so terrible it couldn't be processed. And so normally in sleep, our eyes go like rapid eye movement, and sleep, dreaming, that's when we process things. If it's too difficult, it gets stuck, and then we get all the reactions. So this is just a way of processing it. It's kick-starting the processing. You do that, then check how bad does it feel. Okay, is it 6 out of 10? Okay, do it some more. And as you do that walking, this is kind of what we do with a therapist. It eases it. And if it's really bad, connect with your well-being team, whoever it is, and we're trying to set up within the EMDR network a group of people who can then deal with trauma. Someone who is traumatized. Because to get EMDR, it's really hard. Okay, I'll stop sharing. Any questions?
Thanks, Nick. I mean, first of all, that was super useful and clear and practical from the outset. So yeah, thank you so much. Kind of want to hear more about it all, but my question is, so let's talk about in a training and a traumatic response is triggered in someone and they're up and then they calm down. Should, and I use that word kind of advisedly, they continue? I'm thinking about the kind of the thing about if they want to kind of carry on with the training, like, how to sort of respond to that. If someone has that response and it's like, this is just not right for me, okay, yeah, we know where we are, it's that's it for today, But if someone is like having that response, but I really want to carry on, I feel like I really need to do that, and they're in the process of re-traumatizing themselves and then going out on the road and doing it again, we have a responsibility to step in at this point, and we have kind of said, maybe this isn't the right time. But I'm just sort of wondering from your perspective and from like a first aid point, how you might respond to that.
I would point out that there is a danger when people have a trauma history that they are attracted to similar incidents where they get re-traumatized. And actually to heal it, present and past, it's a way of learning and discussing with them how they can still take part in the action but be safe.
Okay.
Meaning, like, there might be a different role they take. They're not the ones in the middle of the road. They're the ones who are, handing out leaflets. They're the ones who, within an action there's a lot of different things. So maybe that they could do a different role. That would be my suggestion. Saying it's totally fine that you have this, but it's something which we need to take care of. And we need to do it in a safe way. And that means it's like an alcoholic doesn't go into a pub. An alcoholic keeps himself safe. And only when they've really dealt with, I don't know if that's a good metaphor, but, you don't go into a trauma situation if you're traumatized. Yeah. Rowan.
Got 3 questions. Shall I do them all?
One at a time.
Okay, the first thing is, I am slightly disturbed to hear that you've heard that people have been traumatized in our trainings. And I've had 2 experiences in trainings where I've been concerned about them. Here's one of the other questions as well. What I did, or what I've said in trainings, and what I did last time it happened, was to say to that person, sit out of the training, but if you feel able to, still watch and stay engaged with what's happening, but don't participate. Remain engaged, but don't participate, because in that way they can still get the benefit of the training if they feel able to do that. Just wondered what you think about that.
That sounds like being in a situation which could trigger trauma, but remaining safe.
Right, so that's a good thing to do.
That's fine.
Have we gone too far in our trainings that people have been traumatized? Do you think we should be doing that?
Whether traumatized is the right word, I mean, people use it. I think a better word would be triggered.
Okay.
And I would say, actually, no, because what you're doing is you're doing a make-believe of the situation which they're going to go to. So if they do have maybe a background which makes them susceptible to being traumatized, it's really good to know in the training in a safe place. And so if they are, then, you can discuss how they can do it, maybe, which is a point which Dave came up with, maybe discuss, well, actually, you get, if you're triggered, find a way of doing it that you're safe, which is exactly seeing this action, but being on the side, which is what you talked about. Maybe that's what it is.
Can I ask my third? So something that I suggest to people to do, because I find it useful and I've heard other people say it's useful, is to get people to widen their visual perception. And this is on the basis that when we're frightened, we go like that. Mm-hmm. And so to get people to widen their visual perception helps them to get into more expansive, less frightened state. And the way that I do it is I suggest that people fix their eyes on a spot on the wall. I'm looking at the camera now. And then at the same time, open their hands out like this, as though they're hugging, and wiggle their fingers so that they can see their fingers in the periphery of their vision. And then, of course, you can just drop them, but notice that you can both remain focused and have peripheral vision simultaneously, which is quite a good thing to do at an action anyway, because you're aware of your 180-degree awareness. I just wondered if you could comment on that.
Firstly, if it works, go for it. It's really practical. Secondly, from a trauma point of view, what you're doing there is, when I talked about noticing things, so you're getting them to notice a point, notice way out, so you're getting them to use their eyes, you're getting them to use their hands, move their arms, you're getting them to wiggle their fingers. That's really getting it back, back into their senses.
Right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
What's with the eye movement?
Sorry.
What's with the eye movement? Why is that a good thing?
You mean in EMDR?
Yeah.
It's one of these things which, in the person who called Francine Shapiro came across this thing totally by chance, and the story is that she was feeling really trauma, something was really agitating her, and she watched her windscreen wipers going and realized that her eyes were moving. So we know it works. We've spent neuroscientists have spent the last 20 years trying to explain it, give neural mechanism as to why it works. The best one is it's something between left side brain, right side brain. And people who are traumatized, the connection between the two is very low.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's so interesting. Thank you. That was
Anna,
four sneaky questions. I'll stop now.
Anna, you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, I just make statements really. I don't know if they're really questions. Just to get it out of the way, my safe place happens to be the prison cell, at the moment.
Okay.
That's post-traumatic stress syndrome. So that's quite an interesting concept. The other thing is, this is all good. When you say walking away, get them to a safe place, sometimes we're in a stressed out situation for hours, like sitting on a road or on a tanker, and you can practice these techniques and, I hope they work. But if you're in a sustained position for hours and there is no retreat, that just piles on the pressure. That's just the point I want to sort of make. That it can be a prolonged period of traumatic experience without being able to get away. Say you're handcuffed. I mean, that's when I felt really stressed, is actually on one occasion when I was handcuffed, and it just really got to me. So I really appreciate this.
Yeah.
It's simple techniques like that can get you through, but I didn't know that at the time, and I was getting quite freaked out.
And okay, really good point, Anna. The first thing about a trauma incident is that you can't get out of it. That's what makes it traumatic. If you can, then you're escaping, and so you're safe. You can reach safety. And something which makes it traumatic, and which goes into that situation, is there is no way out. So the question is, if someone is actually traumatized, if it is possible, to be able to go out and maybe come back in again, would help. If they are stuck, then there is the way. I mean, what happens? It's dissociation. Is we disappear, we go somewhere else. But you consciously is this imaginary, remembering the safe place. You're going consciously somewhere which feels okay. And then, the tapping, the, ordinary things, thinking about something pleasant, thinking about a good memory, thinking about a good friend. These are the ways the imaginal can help calm the system.
Or it can turn into trying to get something like just a glass of water or a drink of water, something like that. I think that's what I turn it into. I say, well, I'm stuck like this, so actually I'm going to try and negotiate my anxiety away, in a sense.
Yeah, and so what you're doing there is you are restoring agency, is what it's called. If you have agency, you're not traumatized. It's if you have no agency that the trauma comes in. So what you're doing is you're in a very stressful situation where which you can't get away from, but you are maintaining your agency.
I'm just going to say goodbye now, because I didn't want to just vanish off the screen, but just to thank everybody. And I could probably pop back some time if you need any more, but I'm aware that there's lots coming up, and probably see you out there somewhere, and wishing everybody all the best. Take care of yourselves, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, so anything which can help the person to maintain agency, it's great. What we're talking about, and what you'd be talking about with seeing other people, is when they've lost it. You're helping them to regain it.
Can I just quickly add in, I noticed a lot of my friends who were blocked took to eating sandwiches. Their anxiety came out and they nibbled on their sandwiches, and that's how they dealt. They couldn't talk to anybody, but they just furiously nibbled on fruit or sandwiches, and that's the way they got through it. So that works as well sometimes.
Yeah. And there's a we get through, and then there's the after effect. And the trauma first aid helps also with the after effects, just to get rid of the after effects. Okay, any other questions? Dave?
Just taking another sort of perspective on it, going back to
Yep.
the trainings. I mean, part of the reason we wanted to have you along and talk about this was what came up in this call was sort of a real sense of responsibility. And, you know, if someone is triggered in a thing, kind of that sense of responsibility and, oh my God, it's my fault. And what do I do? And I've done this and I've done that. And, you know, the guys here and the guys out doing the trainings have got a lot on their shoulders during the day. Generally, they're in pairs. Sometimes they're not, which is, you know, just from the stuff you've been describing, is so much better, you know, that we are in pairs. But just be nice just to sort of think about it from that perspective, just like as trainers, like these feelings of responsibility and all that it brings up if we feel we've created this situation and this person's going through that, and then the rest of the people in the training as well say, oh look, that person's, you know, been triggered now, you know, this isn't being held well, you know, sort of how to regulate that. And yeah.
Okay. How yourselves to regulate that? I think the first thing is, you know, and this is just kind of standard stuff, the first thing is to feel it and name it. Okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm feeling guilty. Feels like this. And then the second thing is, you know, probably as trainers, you need a debrief. So, you know, when you finish the training, you know, I'm sure you do this anyway, you debrief among yourselves, and that's where you might come up with these feelings. And, you know, what you might need is, you know, from the other trainer, you know, because when we're in this feeling, we think, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. And then you've got the help of, you know, other witnesses to be able to say, yeah, no, actually, you know, that was okay, you know. And I think the third thing is to know that actually, if people get traumatized, if people have trauma reactions in a training, it's a good thing. And you can, you know, when you introduce the training, say that people might have these reactions, and it's really good to know. And as part of the training, we'll tell, you know, we can help you to deal with them. And as you get comfortable with it, I mean, in my work, I have people, you know, doing it all over the place. And they kind of get amused that I just say, wow, well done, that's great, go with that. You know, because it is. It's great, you know, they're having these reactions and they're learning how to deal with it. So, you know, that's the other thing to really remember. If it's coming up in the training, because your training is simulating the action, if it's coming up in the training, it's actually really good that it's coming up, because you're then being able to keep that person safe. If you didn't do the training, they went into the action and had it, you know, had those reactions, and were traumatized, you know, well, that wouldn't be your fault either, but, you know, actually what you're doing is you're preparing them best possible.
And maybe the utter conviction that, you know, we're doing the right thing. And there's going to be pain.
Yeah, I mean, myself, you know, my role within it within the bigger movement is, yes, people are putting themselves in danger. It's my role to try to help them with that, to help them to be able to cope with it, to lessen it.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, I'll just make a note. I'll make a note of that. I don't know what other people think, but we might like collect a load of questions together and do another one of these or something at some point.
That's fine. That's fine.
You know, but
I mean, I think for me, it's probably more useful doing this role than spending a while in prison. You know, helping a bunch of other people. I'm doing this, you know, with you, and I'll be doing it with XR as well, because I think, you know, people need these skills, and bloody hell, we're going to fucking need these skills in 10 years' time. Excuse me, language. With all sorts of, you know, life's going to get more traumatic. We're going to need these. So it's actually really something which we need to start getting into the system. So yeah, I'd be happy to. Need to work out of times. Probably you need to give me a couple of weeks notice if it's a Wednesday evening, if that's your usual time.
great. Well,
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
That's it.
Okay. I mean, if anyone wants Nick's number, let me know. You know, that's really like lovely that you're open to, you know, speaking on a one-to-one basis. But we also don't want to overload you. You know, I know you've got a lot going on, so I'll keep hold of that, guys. And if anyone feels like they really want it, then you know, I'll pass it on, and maybe we can also just, you know, what we're gonna do, Nick, is download this and kind of circulate this amongst the non-violence trainers. I'm sure it will go further as well, and see what comes of that, and then probably book some more time with you. It doesn't have to be on a Wednesday. We probably need to start thinking about moving as well, so we not get the usual crowd, you know, so that's cool. I think that's, I mean, just thank you. I think that was the most useful hour I've spent in a long time. I think there's a lot of agreement there. Wonderful. Okay. Well, shall we check out? Nick, would you like, if you need to rush off, would you like to go first, just in case you need to go? But you're very welcome to stay for all of them.
No, I've got a call in 3 minutes.
Sure.
So I need to go.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye.
Good to see you. Keep in touch.